Have you ever wondered how some people remain calm, no matter what happens? Today, I'll share the secret to controlling your emotions like a stoic. If you want to stop worrying and find peace, listen carefully, because this isn't about being passive. It's about choosing strength over chaos. You think you're calm. Wait until someone tests you, then we'll see. So before you relax, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy what I'm building here. And tell me in the comments, where you listening from? And what time of day is it there? If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe so we can continue exploring deeper Stoic lessons together each day. Toxic people don't always shout. Some whisper. Some smile while slowly twisting the knife, and others just wait, baiting you to react. There was a man I used to work with. Smooth-talking, charismatic, cold as marble underneath. Every compliment he gave came with a hook. Every smile with a silent dare. Asterisk, will you? Asterisk. He didn't want peace. He wanted to show. That's when I remembered something Marcus Aurelius wrote. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. If I mirrored him, I'd become him, and that was worse than losing the argument. So I stopped feeding the fire. Toxic people don't thrive on silence. They thrive on your energy, your reaction. You need to correct them. To win, it's like arguing with someone who's sunburned and blaming you for the sun. I started practicing what I now call strategic neutrality. It's not fake politeness. It's the strength to look at someone trying to provoke you and think, asterisk, you don't get to decide who I am today. Asterisk, Epictetus had this peculiar habit. He would remain completely still, stone-faced when insulted in public, not because he was better than anyone, but because he knew that the moment he engaged, the other person won. There's a debate in Stoic circles about this. Should we confront injustice or retreat into inner peace? Seneca wrestled with that too. But here's where I landed. Not every insult is injustice. Some are just echoes bouncing off empty people. So I no longer give away my peace, just to prove I can fight. I'd rather keep it and walk away whole, because fire only grows if you feed it. I used to think staying calm meant winning, keeping the last word, saying something clever, letting them know I saw through their act. You know, stoic, but spicy. But one day, after an argument that spiraled out of nothing, I sat in my car and realized I didn't win. I just lost, quietly. That's when I started letting go of scorekeeping, because real stillness isn't about being right. It's about being untouchable. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." An idiot. We suffer most when we imagine how things should have gone. The little mental courtroom we build, where we re-argue the moment, deliver a perfect comeback, watch them finally shrink with shame. But the more I tried to win, the more I stayed tied to them. I was carrying the argument in my pocket like a grudge-shaped stone. So I did something strange. I started setting invisible exit times during conversations. A quiet rule for myself. If the tone turns sharp, I give it 90 seconds. Then I disengage, calmly, silently, without the need for punctuation. It's weird, I know, like having a chess clock for drama. But it worked. The thing is, Stoicism was never about enduring abuse or swallowing pain. It's about training the mind to hold its shape no matter the pressure. And here's a question that comes up often in philosophical circles. If you always take the high road, are you letting people walk over you? My answer, the high road feels like surrender until you notice how clean your hands stay. You stopped needing applause. You stopped rehearsing arguments. You start sleeping better. Some days, I still feel the itch. the craving to fire back. But I let it pass. Because peace isn't passive. It's the loudest kind of power. You never hear. There's something funny about the word calm. We talked about it like it's this delicate, soft thing. But the calm I built feels more like armor. Not the kind you wear to intimidate. The kind you wear because you know the world won't always be kind. I remember once sitting in a cafe. A stranger in line behind me started complaining, loudly, about how slow I was. Decid, shifted, muttered something about people like this. It was barely 9 a.m., and I was already someone's villain. My first instinct? Turn around. My second? Smile. But what I did instead was? Nothing. I breathed. I paid. I walked out. Because that morning, I had already put on my armor. I've been doing this thing I picked up from a biography of Marcus Aurelius. Each morning, before he met with his court or generals, he reminded himself, "You will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial." This wasn't cynicism, it was preparation. He didn't armor up against people, he armored himself. Within. Odd habit, right? Writing down a list of awful personalities? Before breakfast? But strangely, it helps. Because when they show up later, you're not surprised. You're ready. That's the Stoic way. You don't wait for the world to change. You change how it lands inside you. There's an old debate among philosophers about emotion. When the wind picks up, some days, staying calm feels like a miracle. Other days, it's a choice you make. But slowly it becomes who you are, not because the world got easier, but because you got steadier. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They weren't calm because life was gentle. They were calm because they stopped letting my phone them. You'll still get tested. Someone will still push your buttons, cut in line, speak with venom behind a smile. But when you remember that your peace is yours to keep, you stop offering it to anyone who asks. You breathe. You ground yourself. You become still, without needing the world to be. And that's where the power lives. Not in the absence of noise, but in your ability to hear it, and stay, and move. So if this spoke to something deep in you, if you felt a moment of clarity or comfort, then I invite you to join this path. Not for me, for you. Subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone else trying to find their center in a chaotic world. Let's keep walking this road together, one steady step at a time. I'll see you in the next one. And here's a question. Philosophers still debate today. If peace requires effort, is it really peace? Or is it just another form of control? Personally, I don't think peace needs to be passive. It's a choice, an active one. Unlike any meaningful choice, it gets stronger the more you practice it. And inconvenient moments? The goal isn't to feel good all the time. The goal is to feel grounded, even when you don't. That's how the first layer of inner peace gets poured. There was a time I used to think, but if I could just control everything around me, I could finally relax. I'd manage people's moods, dodge difficult conversations, obsess over tiny details, like whether someone's okay with me or not. That wasn't peace. That was performance. And it's exhausting. What I didn't realize then, what Stoicism slowly taught me, is that the world doesn't have to come down for me to find calm. I do. Epictetus said, asterisk, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Asterisk. At first I rolled my eyes. That sounded suspiciously like every self-help cliché ever written. But the longer I lived, the truer it became. You don't control the weather, but you choose whether to bring an umbrella. You don't control how someone speaks to you, but you decide whether to echo their tone or soften it. You don't control the market crash, the flight delay, or your coworker's 5-sneeze tantrum in a meeting, but you control you. And in that gap, in that sacred pause between stimulus and response, is your power. Some scholars still debate whether Stoicism encourages emotional suppression. Should we feel less? Do we bury anger to be virtuous? But I think they're missing the nuance. To me, Stoicism isn't about not feeling. It's about not being ruled by feelings. There's a difference between noticing your anger and handing it the steering wheel. One habit I picked up, which I'll admit is a little odd, is writing my frustration in the third person. She's annoyed the barista forgot her name again. He is frustrated the Wi-Fi cut out during the meeting. It's small, but it creates distance, and distance creates perspective. Most of us react without thinking, then regret with clarity. But if you create just enough space between the trigger and your response, you can choose a different story. Maybe even a peaceful one. Peace doesn't come from silencing others. It comes from silencing the part of you that thinks you need to win every battle. The louder the world gets, the more valuable your quiet becomes. I used to think inner peace was a kind of silence. You know, clear calendar, no noise, no conflict, no email notifications, screaming in your pocket like tiny digital demons. But then I had one of those weeks. You know the kind. 3 crises, to miss deadlines, 1 mysterious charge on your bank account, and a voicemail from a relative who still thinks boundaries is just a fancy term for being rude. And yet, I didn't crack. I didn't snap, didn't spiral, didn't even raise my voice. Not because I'd finally solved my problems, but because I found something underneath them. A stillness that wasn't about the absence of chaos. It was the refusal to be shaken. By Marcus Aurelius, riding in the chaos of Roman rule, once said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." And he wasn't writing that from a spa. He was emperor, surrounded by betrayal, war, death. Yet still he found that space inside. There's an odd practice I picked up from a Stoic, inspired runner I met. He deliberately chooses the worst treadmill at the gym. You know, the one, broken fan, weird angle. Occasionally smells like regret, because it reminds him that peace isn't about optimizing conditions. It's about carrying stillness into the messiest environments. There's a beautiful academic question that arises here. Is inner peace a form of detachment from reality? Or deeper intimacy with it? Are we retreating or returning? Personally, I found that real peace doesn't float above the noise. A walk straight through it, with open eyes. Sometimes I'll sit in a crowded cafe with no headphones, just watching, listening, noticing how people carry their stress, like a bag they forgot to put down. And in those moments, I remind myself, everything around me is movement, but I don't have to move with it. Peace isn't the luxury of the privileged, it's the discipline of the steady, and you don't find it on a mountaintop, you build it. In traffic, in tension, in silence, in noise, and the world will never stop spinning. People will interrupt, plans will unravel, the noise will rise. You already know this, but inside you, there's a room, quiet, clear, untouched. That's where Stoicism leads you, not away from life, the deeper into it, with steadiness.